So today I am making for you a very special dumpling called Qingtuan, and it is typically eaten during the Chinese Qingming festival, which is either Tomb Sweeping Day or Ancestor Remembrance Day. And it's cool because the whole family essentially gets together, they'll go to the cemetery, they'll bring flowers, they will, kind of clean around the tomb areas and really like bring food for their ancestors as well. And in the past, they would bring a dumpling like this, but today, usually they'll just eat it during the Qingming festival. And I think it's cool that they have turned it into a festival because it could be something where I feel like it could be like a sad type of ordeal, but it's cool that they've turned it into a festival. And so these dumplings, they're unique because the outside is actually a mix of glutinous rice flour and then something called mugwort. And mugwort you might have seen in a lot of like Koreans use it in their desserts as well. But it's kind of this like herby plant that is bitter but is very, very fragrant. And it's difficult to find in countries that don't use it often. And potentially it can be kind of toxic, so some countries don't allow it either. So that's on the skin side part of the dumpling. And then on the filling side of the dumpling, a very traditional filling is a mix of Chinese pork floss, which you guys can think of as actually like fluffy jerky, and also egg yolks. So pork floss and egg yolk, and then they mix it together, and it's supposedly really, really good. The second type of filling, I mean, you can fill it with whatever you want, like red bean paste or whatever, but the second type of popular filling is cut up tofu or cut up bean curd, and this other herb called malantou, which people tell me is very similar to chrysanthemum leaves, so if you can get that, feel free. I cannot find either of the two. I cannot find mugwort, I cannot find this second herb. So today, I'm gonna make it easy for us all. I'm just gonna use spinach. And we're gonna do spinach for the skin, and then we're gonna do spinach for the filling as well. And what's nice is you can use fresh spinach, but you can also use frozen cubes of spinach as well. So it makes it easy for everybody. So I hope you guys really enjoy this recipe. I think it's a really special type of dumpling, so I hope you all enjoy. Before we head to the recipes, I did want to mention I have a Skillshare's link that I will put down below for 2 months free of Skillshare. If you guys don't know, the site basically provides all different kinds of tutorials, either for you or for your kids. So it's everything from learning about photography to how to paint with watercolor. You can talk about like knitting or how do you sew, graphic design if you want to pick up something like web development as a skill as well. Very useful stuff for you, but then also for your kids. And the 2 months is completely free starting right now. So I will put the link on the bottom. It is an affiliate link. So by using it, you guys definitely help me out. You guys help the channel out a lot. So yeah, if you're interested, there's a lot of really cool classes there to be doing at home. So the first part is that outside dough, and don't get flour all over the place like I do. So I'm gonna start off with 1 cup of glutinous rice flour, and then usually that's paired with a 1/4 cup of wheat starch, but if you don't have it, I've seen people use rice flour as well. 4.5 tablespoons of sugar, and then I just put in a 1/4 cup of boiling hot water. And that just pre-cooks the flour a little bit, gets the starches going, and then you'll have a more cohesive dough afterwards. And this is kind of the lazy version because you're supposed to cook part of the dough. So I'm just pouring the water into part of the flour. And then afterwards, 110 grams of pureed spinach. So I just took some spinach with some water. And I'm guessing the more spinach you add, the greener it will be, but I kind of just casually blended some spinach with a little bit of water until I got a puree. So those of you who are not used to working with gluten-free flours, they behave so much better than normal wheat flour. And the procedure is the same. You want to get your hands in there, add in a little bit of liquid at a time until the dough comes together. And the texture is one of, I guess, soft Play-Doh. It shouldn't be necessarily too sticky to your hands, but it should still be tacky. And the dough is actually quite malleable. And we're gonna let this guy rest for 10 to 15 minutes afterwards, and that'll maybe dry it up a little bit. But you can adjust it with a little bit more rice flour afterwards. Now, onwards to the filling, and the recipe is going to be all down below, but I'm going to do a half a cup of firm tofu that I am going to brunoise, cut into 1/8 of an inch pieces. So nice small pieces. It'll look really pretty after you bite into it, but I mean, obviously you guys can do like a tofu crumble for this as well. I have about a half a cup of cooked spinach that I squeezed all of the water out of, and I'm gonna chop equally as finely. In terms of the flavoring agents, I have such a trio for you. So a little bit of salt, some white pepper, as well as a little bit of sesame oil. And those come together just so well. It makes for the perfect dressing for the filling. And I also adjusted it with, sometimes people will adjust it with a bit of sugar if you feel like it needs it, but that's really up to you. So the dough amount makes for 10 pieces. I actually split the portions in half. But what you do with this style of gluten-free dough is you just make a big divot in the middle, as much as you want to fill. But if you're initially just starting, you don't want to fill it up that much, because the more filling it is, the harder it is to close, right? And if you guys can see, it's a different way of really crimping or folding. We're just rolling it back into a circle. And because it's a gluten-free flour, it will behave very much like Play-Doh. Like if you have a hole that suddenly develops, you can just pinch it back together, roll it until it gets nice and smooth. A small tip is to be gentle when you're rolling those balls because the tofu can kind of like peek out and poke out at you if you don't. So this goes into a preheated steamer on high for 12 minutes because these are fairly big dumplings. And once that is up, you'll see them become just a little bit more translucent and they are ready to be eaten. Sorry, I left that scene on a little longer than normal, but I could just watch fresh dumplings and fresh buns come out of this steamer any day. It is just so intriguing and lovely to watch. In terms of the texture of these dumplings, because it is glutinous rice flour, it is that chewy, sticky texture of like mochi that maybe people who are used to Western cuisines are not that familiar with. But it's really cool. I personally love it. I think you should give it a try if you haven't before. And you can see all of that lovely filling that's in each of these dumplings. And the sesame oil and the salt and the pepper, it just makes the flavors explode with so little ingredients. So that's it for me, kitties. I hope you all enjoyed these special Qingtuan dumplings. And remember about the Skillshare link. It's actually quite cool. I looked through a lot of classes this weekend, and there's like pottery, there's cooking, there's baking, there's, painting. There's so many things for you and your family to do together. So definitely check out that link, 2 free months, if you guys are interested.